The diplomatic meeting room aboard Nexus Station buzzed with quiet tension. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the large circular table, but all eyes focused on two groups sitting across from each other. On one side sat the Velkari delegation. Their leader, Zara Eth Velkorim, towered over everyone else even while seated. Her dark blue skin gleamed under the station's lights, and her 4 powerful arms rested on the table's surface. Thick, armor-like plates covered her shoulders and back. She was a warrior, bred for battle, and it showed in every movement she made. On the other side sat the human delegation. Their leader was a small woman named Dr. Sarah Chen. She looked tiny next to the Velkari warrior. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore a plain blue diplomatic uniform. To most observers, she appeared unremarkable. "The humans ask for too much?" Zara said, her voice deep and commanding. She gestured with 2 of her arms, while the other 2 remained folded. "They want access to our mining rights, our trade, routes, and our technology. What do they offer in return? Words. Empty promises." Sarah leaned forward slightly. Her voice was calm and steady. "We offer medical knowledge, agricultural techniques, and cultural exchange programs. These may not seem valuable now, but they will benefit both our species for generations." Zara Eth's yellow eyes narrowed. "Medical knowledge? Our bodies are strong. We do not get sick like weak creatures do. Agricultural techniques? We take what we need from the planets we conquer. Cultural exchange?" She made a sound that might have been laughter. "What culture do humans have? You have existed for such a short time." The other species around the table watched carefully. Some took notes, others whispered among themselves. Everyone knew this meeting was important. The Velkari Empire controlled 3-star systems rich in rare minerals. The humans needed those materials for their expanding colonies. "Strength is not the only important thing in the galaxy," Sarah replied. "Adaptation and cooperation have allowed humans to spread to over 50 worlds in just 200 years. 50 worlds. Zara Eth stood up, her 7-foot frame casting a shadow across the table. "The Velkari Empire has conquered over 200 worlds in the last 1,000 years. We did not spread by asking nicely. We took what we needed through strength and honor." Sarah remained seated. "And how many of those worlds rebelled against you? How many resources do you spend keeping them under control?" The question hit its mark. Several Velkari in the delegation shifted uncomfortably. It was well known that the Velkari spent enormous amounts of energy dealing with uprisings on their conquered worlds. "Rebellions are dealt with swiftly," Zara Eth said, but her voice had an edge to it now. "The strong rule, the weak obey. This is the natural order." "Perhaps," Sarah said, pulling up a holographic display. "But our colonies are all voluntary settlements. We spend no resources on controlling them because they want to be part of human space. Our way creates growth. Your way creates only more problems." Zara Eth's hands clenched into fists. Around the table, representatives from other species leaned back. They could feel the tension building. "You speak of weakness as if it were strength," the Velkari warrior said. "You talk of cooperation when you should speak of dominance. This is why humans will never be respected in this galaxy. You are soft creatures who fear true conflict." Sarah's expression didn't change. "We prefer to avoid unnecessary conflict, yes. But that doesn't make us weak." "Prove it," Zara Eth challenged. "Show me this human strength you claim to have." The room fell silent. Even the quiet humming of the station's systems seemed to fade away. Every being present understood what was happening. The Velkari were a warrior culture. When they said, "prove it," they usually meant only one thing. Sarah looked around the table at her fellow humans. Her aide, Ambassador Rodriguez, was shaking his head slightly. The other human diplomats looked worried. This was not how the meeting was supposed to go. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Sarah asked quietly. Zara-Eth smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "I challenge you to single combat. Velkhari tradition. You and me, one-on-one with weapons of honor. When I defeat you, your people will understand their place in the galaxy." Whispers broke out around the table. The Hrathi representative, a thin creature with multiple eyes, began typing rapidly on his communication device. The news would spread across the station within minutes. "And if I win?" Sarah asked. Zara-Eth laughed loudly. "If you win, which is impossible, the Velkhari will consider humans worthy of respect. We will sign your trade agreement without changes." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. She looked at her hands, folded calmly on the table. Around the room, everyone waited for her response. "The challenge cannot be refused," Rodriguez whispered urgently in her ear. "But you don't have to accept it personally. You can name a champion to fight for you." Sarah shook her head. "No. If I'm going to represent humanity in these negotiations, I should represent humanity in this challenge too." She looked up at Zara-Eth. "I accept your challenge." The Velkhari warrior's smile widened. She had expected the human to find an excuse to avoid the fight. This small, soft creature was going to face her in combat? It would be over in seconds. "Excellent," Zara-Eth said. 3 days from now, we will meet in the station's ceremonial arena. Traditional Velkhari weapons and rules. All species on the station may observe." "Agreed," Sarah said simply. As the meeting broke up, delegates from various species began making their own plans. Some would attend the duel out of curiosity. Others saw an opportunity to gain favor with whichever side won. A few began placing bets on the outcome. The odds were not in humanity's favor. Back in the human quarters, Rodriguez confronted Sarah immediately. "What were you thinking? Zara-Eth is a trained warrior. She's fought in dozens of battles. You're a scientist." "I'm also a student of alien cultures," Sarah replied calmly, "and I've been studying the Velkhari for 5 years." "Studying them won't help you in a fight." Sarah smiled for the first time that day. "We'll see." As news of the challenge spread, throughout Nexus Station, reactions varied by species. The Hrathi considered it entertaining. The Zephyrians thought it was barbaric. The Crystalline Collective calculated the mathematical probability of human victory at less than 2%. But in the deepest archives of the station's database, Sarah Chen began her real preparation. She had 3 days to do something no human had ever attempted before: defeat a Velkhari warrior in single combat. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had their own definition of strength. News of the challenge spread through Nexus Station like wildfire. Within hours, every species on the station knew about the duel between the Velkhari warrior and the human diplomat. Most reactions were the same: shock, curiosity, and pity for the human who had accepted certain defeat. In the station's central hub, a Hrathi merchant was already taking bets. The odds against Sarah Chen were 50-1. Even the most optimistic beings only gave her a tiny chance of survival, let alone victory. "The human will last maybe 30 seconds, clicked a Zephyrian trader, placing his bet. "Velkhari warriors are bred for combat. That small creature doesn't stand a chance." Similar conversations happened throughout the station. In the diplomatic quarters, Human Ambassador Rodriguez was having an emergency meeting with the rest of the human delegation. "We have to find a way out of this," Rodriguez said, pacing back and forth. "Sarah is brilliant, but she's not a fighter. Zara-Eth will crush her." "Maybe we can claim diplomatic immunity?" suggested Dr. Morrison, the team's legal advisor. "Too late for that," replied Captain Hayes, the delegation's military escort. "The challenge was made publicly. If we back out now, humans will be seen as cowards throughout this sector of the galaxy." While her team worried, Sarah Chen was nowhere to be found in the human quarters. Instead, she was 3 levels down in the station's archive center, surrounded by holographic displays showing Velkari anatomy, culture, and combat footage. "Computer, show me all available data on Velkari physiology," she said quietly. Hundreds of files appeared in the air around her. Medical scans, biological studies, cultural reports, and military analyses filled the space. Sarah began reading, her eyes moving quickly from file to file. The archive's AI spoke in its neutral voice. "Dr. Chen, this is an unusual research request. May I ask the purpose?" "I'm preparing for a cultural exchange," Sarah replied without looking up from a detailed scan of Velkari muscle structure. What Sarah didn't tell the AI was that she had been preparing for this moment for years. Not this exact situation, but something like it. She had always known that humanity's expansion into the galaxy would eventually lead to conflicts that couldn't be solved with words alone. 20 years ago, Sarah Chen had been a very different person. Fresh out of medical school, she had joined the Earth Defense Force as a combat medic. For 5 years, she had served on the frontier worlds, treating wounded soldiers and sometimes fighting alongside them. During her military service, Sarah had discovered something interesting about herself. She was naturally good at reading people and situations. More importantly, she was excellent at finding patterns and weaknesses in opponents. These skills had kept her and her unit alive during several dangerous missions. After leaving the military, Sarah had earned advanced degrees in xenobiology and alien cultures, but she had never stopped training her body or studying combat techniques. While other diplomats spent their free time at social events, Sarah practiced martial arts and studied military tactics. Now, as she reviewed Velkari combat footage, all of those years of preparation were coming together. Computer, cross-reference Velkari joint structure with their combat movements. Look for patterns of weakness or vulnerability. Meanwhile, in the Velkari quarters, Zara Eth was conducting her own preparations. She knelt before a small shrine, performing the traditional rituals before combat. Her fellow warriors stood around her, offering prayers and encouragement. "This will bring great honor to our people," said Korvac, her second in command. "Defeating the human will show the galaxy that the Velkari are still the greatest warriors." Zara Eth nodded, but something bothered her. The human accepted too quickly. Most species would have tried to negotiate or find an excuse. "Perhaps she is simply braver than most humans," Korvac suggested. "Or more foolish," added another warrior. But Zara Eth was not convinced. In her 30 years of combat, she had learned to trust her instincts. Something about the human's calm acceptance felt wrong. It was not the behavior of a frightened creature facing certain defeat. "Have you learned anything about this, Dr. Chen?" she asked. Korvac activated a holographic display. "She is a scientist and diplomat. No military record in our databases. She specializes in alien biology and cultural studies. Nothing threatening." Zara Eth studied the information, but her unease remained. "Keep monitoring her activities. I want to know what she does during these 3 days." The next morning brought unexpected news. Sarah Chen had requested access to the station's medical database, specifically files related to Velkari anatomy and physiology. "Why would she want medical information?" Korvac asked, confused. Zara Eth's yellow eyes narrowed. "Unknown. Perhaps she hopes to learn about our biology to understand us better. It will not help her in combat." But privately, the Velkari warrior was beginning to feel uncertain. In her culture, warriors prepared for battle through physical training and mental focus. They did not study their opponent's medical files. Back in the archives, Sarah was making remarkable progress. Years of medical training combined with her xenobiology expertise allowed her to understand Velkari physiology in ways that even some Velkari did not. "Fascinating," she murmured, studying a nerve cluster diagram. "Their strength comes from rapid muscle contraction, but that creates specific pressure points that could be exploited." She made notes on a secure tablet. Building. A detailed analysis of Velkari combat capabilities and potential weaknesses. But more importantly, she was developing a strategy that played to human strengths, rather than trying to match Velkari power. On the second day, Captain Hayes found Sarah in the station's gymnasium at 500 hours. She was moving through a complex series of exercises that combined martial arts forms with movements he didn't recognize. "Sarah, what are you doing?" She paused, barely breathing hard despite the intense workout. "Preparing." "You know I have combat training," Hayes offered. "I could fight in your place." Sarah shook her head. "This challenge is about more than just winning a fight, Captain. It's about changing how the galaxy sees humanity." "And you think you can do that?" For the first time since the challenge was made, Sarah's smile showed confidence instead of calm resignation. "I think the galaxy is about to learn something new about humans." Hayes watched her return to her unusual training routine. The movements were unlike any martial art he knew, combining elements from different fighting styles with what looked like dance and gymnastics. "Sarah, what exactly is your background? Your file says you went straight from medical school to diplomatic service." Sarah executed a complex spinning movement that ended in a defensive position. "Files don't always tell the complete story, Captain." As word spread about Sarah's strange preparations, more beings throughout the station began paying attention. The betting odds shifted slightly, though still heavily against the human. Some of the older, wiser species began to whisper among themselves. "Humans are unpredictable," an elderly crystalline elder told her companions. "Perhaps this one has surprises we do not expect." On the final day before the duel, Zara-Eth received a report that made her pause. The human had spent 18 hours straight in the archives, studying not just Velkari biology, but their combat history, cultural traditions, and even their military tactics from the past 1,000 years. "She studies us like prey studies a predator," Zara-Eth told Korvac. "But we are not prey. Should we be concerned?" Zara-Eth stood and began her own final preparations. "A warrior is always concerned before battle, but concern makes us careful, not weak. Tomorrow, the galaxy will witness Velkari's strength." As the station's lights dimmed to simulate night, both combatants made their final preparations. Zara-Eth meditated and sharpened her weapons. Sarah reviewed her notes one last time, then spent 2 hours in physical training that would have impressed Olympic athletes. The duel was less than 12 hours away, and the galaxy was watching. The ceremonial arena on Nexus Station had never hosted so many different species at once. Representatives from dozens of worlds filled the circular seating area, all eager to witness what most expected to be a very short fight. The arena itself was a simple circle 50 meters across, with a smooth metal floor. Traditional Velkari weapons hung on display around the walls: curved swords, battle axes, and staff weapons that required great strength to use properly. Ambassador Rodriguez sat in the front row with the human delegation, his hands clenched tightly. Together. Around him, beings from across the galaxy chatted excitedly about the coming spectacle. "The human will be lucky to last 1 minute," said a Zephyrian diplomat to his companion. "I give her 30 seconds, replied a Hrathi trader, checking his betting device. In the arena preparation areas, both fighters made their final preparations. Zara-Eth performed traditional Velkari battle rituals, her 4 arms moving in precise patterns as she warmed up her muscles. Her blue skin gleamed with a light coating of oil that would make it harder for opponents to grab her. In the opposite preparation room, Sarah Chen sat quietly on a bench, reviewing her notes one final time. She had changed into simple combat clothing, a plain gray shirt, dark pants, and lightweight boots. Compared to Zara-Eth's impressive appearance, she looked ordinary. Captain Hayes entered the room. "Sarah, are you sure about this? We could still find a way out." Sarah looked up from her tablet. "Captain, do you know how many humans have ever fought a Velkari warrior in single combat?" "No," 0. Today, the galaxy gets to see something new. A loud horn sounded throughout the station. The duel was about to begin. Sarah walked into the arena to scattered applause from the human section and curious murmurs from everyone else. She looked tiny in the large space, especially when Zara Eth emerged from the opposite entrance. The Velkari warrior entered with ceremony and pride. Her 4 arms carried different weapons, 2 curved swords in her upper hands and a battle staff in her lower hands. She raised all 4 weapons above her head, and the crowd roared its approval. Station Commander Vex, a neutral crystalline being, floated to the center of the arena. His multiple crystal faces reflected the lights as he spoke. This combat follows traditional Velkari rules. His voice echoed throughout the arena. Both fighters may choose weapons from the display. The fight continues until one fighter yields, is unable to continue, or... He paused. Until one fighter is no longer alive. Sarah felt a chill at those words, but her expression remained calm. She walked to the weapon display and surprised everyone by choosing only a single staff weapon, much lighter than Zara Eth's equipment. "The human chooses poorly," commented a Velkari observer. "How can she block 4 weapons with only one?" Zara Eth looked across the arena at her opponent. Something still bothered her about the human's calm behavior, but she pushed the feeling aside. In moments, this would be over. "Begin," Commander Vex announced, floating quickly out of the combat area. The crowd fell silent, watching intently. Zara Eth immediately charged forward, her 4 weapons spinning in deadly patterns. She moved with incredible speed and power, covering the distance between them in seconds. But Sarah did something unexpected. Instead of standing her ground or charging forward to meet the attack, she moved sideways and backward, staying just out of reach of Zara Eth's weapons. "Fight me!" Zara Eth demanded, pursuing the retreating human. "Do not run like a coward!" Sarah continued moving in a wide circle around the arena, always staying just beyond the range of the Velkari's weapons. To most observers, it looked like fear. But Sarah was doing something else entirely. She was watching and learning. As Zara Eth attacked repeatedly, Sarah observed everything: the pattern of the warrior's movements, which arm attacked first in different combinations, how Zara Eth shifted her weight before changing direction. Most importantly, Sarah watched for the biological signs she had studied in the medical files. "This is embarrassing," muttered Rodriguez. "She's just running away." But Captain Hayes noticed something different. "Look at her eyes. She's not running, scared. She's studying Zara Eth like a scientist studies a specimen." For 3 full minutes, Sarah avoided every attack while making mental notes. She learned that Zara Eth favored her upper right arm. She noticed that the warrior's breathing pattern changed before powerful strikes. She saw how Zara Eth's balance shifted when using all 4 weapons at once. Most importantly, Sarah identified the exact location of the nerve cluster she had studied in the medical files. "Enough running!" Zara Eth roared, frustration clear in her voice. She changed tactics, moving to corner Sarah against the arena wall. This time, Sarah didn't retreat. As Zara Eth closed in for what should have been the finishing attack, Sarah did something no one expected. Instead of trying to block the 4-weapon assault or dodge away, Sarah dropped low and moved forward, inside the reach of Zara Eth's weapons. Her staff fell to the ground as she used both hands for something completely different. With precise movements learned from years of medical training, Sarah pressed 2 fingers against a specific spot just below Zara Eth's upper right shoulder. The effect was immediate and shocking. Zara Eth's upper right arm went completely numb. The sword fell from her suddenly useless hand, clattering loudly on the arena floor. The entire arena fell silent. Even the constant humming of the station systems seemed to stop. Zara Eth stared at her arm in disbelief. She could see it, but she couldn't feel it or move it. "What? What did you do?" Sarah had already moved away, picking up her staff and returning to a safe distance. Temporary nerve disruption. It will wear off in about 10 minutes. Nerve disruption? The confusion in Zara Eth's voice was clear. Your species has several nerve clusters that control major muscle groups, Sarah explained calmly, as if she were giving a medical lecture. I applied pressure to the one that controls your dominant arm. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. No one had ever seen anything like this in Velkhari combat. That's impossible, said a Velkhari observer. Our warriors train their whole lives. How could a human know something we do not? In the arena, Zara Eth tried to make her right arm work, but it remained completely limp. She still had 3 functional arms, but her fighting balance was completely disrupted. You studied our bodies to find ways to hurt us, she accused. Sarah shook her head. I studied your bodies to find ways to fight you without permanent damage. I could have struck pressure points that would cause much worse effects. You're lying. Your lower left arm has a nerve cluster near the elbow. Your legs have vulnerable points behind the knees. Your neck has 7 different pressure points that would cause temporary unconsciousness. Sarah's voice remained calm and educational. I mapped 17 different ways to disable a Velkhari warrior without causing lasting harm. The arena was completely silent now. Even the other Velkhari warriors in the audience looked stunned. Zara Eth felt something she had never experienced in combat before: uncertainty. This small human creature had not only survived her attacks but had demonstrated knowledge of Velkhari physiology that exceeded even their own medical training. How? Zara Eth asked quietly. Humans are very good at learning, Sarah replied. When we encounter a new challenge, we study it until we understand it completely. Then we adapt. Sarah held her staff in a ready position but made no aggressive moves. I don't want to hurt you, Zara Eth. But I can, and we both know it now. For the first time in her life, the greatest Velkhari warrior faced an opponent who had turned her own species' strengths into weaknesses. The duel was far from over, but everything had changed. In the audience, beings from dozens of worlds began to realize that they might have seriously underestimated humanity. The silence in the arena stretched for long seconds. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy stared at the impossible scene before them. A small human had just disabled the arm of the most feared Velkhari warrior using nothing but knowledge and precision. Zara Eth looked at her useless right arm, then back at Sarah. Her yellow eyes blazed with a mixture of confusion and rage. You think tricks will save you? She snarled, adjusting her grip on the remaining weapons. I am still stronger than you. I still have 3 arms to your 2. Sarah stood calmly, her staff held ready but not threatening. Strength isn't everything, Zara Eth. Your people have forgotten that. My people have conquered 200 worlds through strength. And how much energy do you spend keeping those worlds under control? Sarah asked, beginning to move in a slow circle again. How many rebellions do you fight? How many resources go to maintaining fear instead of building something better? Zara Eth charged again, but this time her attack was different. The loss of her dominant arm had thrown off her balance and timing. She was more careful now, more defensive, and that caution slowed her down. Sarah continued her circular movement, staying just out of reach. But now she did something that had never been done in Velkhari combat before. She kept talking. Your species is impressive, Sarah said, easily avoiding a sword thrust. Incredible strength, natural armor, 4 arms that can work independently. You're natural warriors. Then why do you fight us? Zara Eth demanded, pursuing the human around the arena. I'm not fighting you, Sarah replied, ducking under a staff swing. I'm teaching you, the crowd murmured in confusion. Teaching? What kind of warrior taught during combat? Sarah continued her explanation while avoiding attacks. Humans studied Over 3,000 hours of Velkari combat footage from your military archives. We analyzed your movements, your strategies, your strengths and weaknesses. Zaraeth's attacks became more frustrated as she realized Sarah was treating the fight like a classroom lesson. We learned that Velkari warriors rely on intimidation and overwhelming force, Sarah continued, leaping backward to avoid two swords, striking at once. You expect opponents to freeze in fear or try to match your strength? But what happens when they don't? They die, Zaraeth roared, swinging her staff in a wide arc. Sarah rolled under the attack and came up on the other side. Actually, they adapt. Humans are very good at adaptation. Around the arena, representatives from other species leaned forward in their seats. This was unlike any combat they had ever witnessed. The human talks too much, complained a Zephyrian. Observer. Why doesn't she fight properly? But Captain Hayes was beginning to understand. She's not just fighting, she's demonstrating something. In the arena, Sarah's calm commentary was having an unexpected effect on Zaraeth. The Velkari warrior had trained her entire life for combat, but she had never faced an opponent who analyzed her every move out loud. Your breathing pattern changes before you make power strikes, Sarah observed, dodging another attack. You favor circular movements when using multiple weapons. Your balance shifts slightly to the left when you prepare for overhead attacks. Zaraeth tried to change her patterns, but decades of training were hard to overcome. Every time she began a familiar movement, Sarah was already moving to counter it. How do you know all this? Zaraeth demanded, frustration clear in her voice. Because humans don't just fight, Sarah explained, vaulting over a low staff sweep. We study, we learn, we adapt. When we encounter something we don't understand, we take it apart piece by piece until we master it. The psychological impact was devastating. Zaraeth began to realize that this human had studied her species like scientists study insects. Every secret of Velkari combat had been discovered, analyzed, and countered. But more disturbing was the growing realization that Sarah was barely breathing hard. The Velkari warrior, despite her superior strength and size, was beginning to tire. Humans, Sarah was demonstrating, had better endurance than anyone had expected. Impossible, muttered a Velkari observer in the crowd. Our warriors have the strength of 10 humans, but not the stamina, replied an elderly crystalline diplomat who had been watching carefully. Look at their breathing patterns. The human grows stronger while the Velkari weakens. It was true. While Zaraeth was breathing heavily from her powerful attacks, Sarah maintained steady, controlled breathing. Her movements remained precise and economical, while Zaraeth's became more desperate. You cannot run forever, Zaraeth shouted, launching another assault. I'm not running, Sarah replied calmly. I'm waiting. Waiting for what? For you to understand what this is really about. Sarah suddenly changed tactics. Instead of just avoiding attacks, she began to strike back. But her counterattacks were nothing like traditional combat. She used her staff to tap pressure points, to redirect Zaraeth's movements, to throw off the warrior's balance without causing real damage. Your left knee has a vulnerable spot just below the joint, Sarah explained, tapping it lightly with her staff. Zaraeth's leg buckled slightly. Your neck has nerve clusters that control balance, Sarah continued, touching another spot. Zaraeth stumbled. Stop playing with me, the Velkari warrior roared. I'm not playing, Sarah said seriously. I'm showing you that humans don't win through superior strength. We win by understanding our opponents better than they understand themselves. The arena fell completely silent except for the sound of combat. Every being present was witnessing something unprecedented, a human taking apart a Velkari warrior's combat abilities like a teacher correcting a student's mistakes. Zaraeth, desperate and exhausted, decided to end the fight with one final all-out assault. She raised all three functional weapons and charged directly at Sarah with everything she had left. It was exactly what Sarah had been waiting for. As the massive Velkhari warrior bore down on her with unstoppable force, Sarah did something that defied all logic. Instead of dodging or blocking, she stepped forward to meet the charge. At the last possible second, Sarah dropped low and used Zara-Eth's own momentum against her. With precise timing learned from years of martial arts training, she grabbed the warrior's leading arm and rolled backward, pulling Zara-Eth over her in a perfect throwing technique. The 7-foot Velkhari warrior flew through the air and crashed heavily to the arena floor, her remaining weapons scattering across the metal surface. Zara-Eth lay stunned, staring up at the arena ceiling, completely unable to process what had just happened. Sarah stood over her, not threatening but not backing away either. "That's called judo," Sarah explained quietly. "It's a human martial art based on using an opponent's strength and momentum against them. The stronger and faster you attack, the harder you fall." The arena erupted in shocked voices and gasps of disbelief. For the first time in her life, Zara-Eth Velkhorim, the greatest warrior of the Velkhari Empire, lay defeated on the ground. But the most shocking thing was that she was completely uninjured, humbled, exhausted, and confused, but not truly hurt. The human had won without causing any permanent damage. The arena remained silent for several heartbeats. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy stared in shock at the scene before them. The greatest Velkhari warrior lay defeated on the metal floor, while a small human stood nearby, not even breathing, heavily. Zara-Eth stared up at the arena ceiling, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. In 30 years of combat, she had never been defeated. She had conquered worlds, led armies, and earned the respect of the entire Velkhari Empire through strength and skill. Now she lay on the ground, beaten by a creature she had dismissed as weak and soft. Sarah Chen looked down at her fallen opponent, with no triumph in her eyes, only understanding. Slowly, she extended her hand toward Zara-Eth. "The fight is over," Sarah said quietly. "Let me help you up." Zara-Eth stared at the offered hand. In Velkhari culture, showing mercy to a defeated enemy was considered weakness. A true warrior either finished their opponent or left them to struggle alone. But something in Sarah's expression was different from anything Zara-Eth had ever seen after combat. There was no cruelty, no mockery, no desire to cause further humiliation. There was only respect for a worthy opponent. Hesitantly, Zara-Eth reached up with her working left hand and grasped Sarah's. The human helped pull the much larger warrior to her feet. "Why?" Zara-Eth asked, confusion clear in her voice. "Why do you help me after defeating me?" Sarah smiled gently. "Because victory was never the real point of this fight." Around the arena, the crowd began to murmur as they realized what they were witnessing. This was not how combat usually ended among warrior species. "I don't understand," Zara-Eth said, flexing her right arm as feeling began to return to it. "The duel was never about proving humans are stronger than Velkhari," Sarah explained. "It was about showing that strength isn't the only way to solve problems." Sarah gestured to the weapons scattered across the arena floor. "Your people have spent 1,000 years conquering through force. You take what you want and control it through fear. But what has that really given you?" Zara-Eth followed Sarah's gaze to where other Velkhari warriors sat in the audience. For the first time, she really looked at their faces. Instead of the pride she expected, she saw uncertainty and confusion. "Rebellions," Zara-Eth said quietly. "Constant fights to maintain control. Resources spent on suppression instead of growth." "Exactly," Sarah nodded. "Humans learned a different way. We prefer to turn enemies into allies, to solve problems through understanding rather than domination." In the audience, Ambassador Rodriguez was still trying to process what he had witnessed. She actually won, he whispered to Captain Hayes. She defeated a Velkhari warrior in single combat. More than that, Hayes replied, watching Sarah and Zara-Eth talk quietly in the center of the arena. She's changing how the galaxy sees us. Around the arena, representatives from dozens of species were having similar conversations. The Hrathi merchants were already updating their trading algorithms to account for human capabilities. The Zephyrian diplomats were reconsidering their dismissive attitude toward human proposals. Remarkable, said an elderly crystalline observer to her companions. The humans studied the Velkhari so thoroughly that she knew their bodies better than they did. More than that, replied another crystalline. She turned their greatest strength into a weakness. This species bears watching. In the arena, Zara-Eth was experiencing something entirely new. For the first time in her life, she was learning about combat from someone who had defeated her. How did you know about our nerve clusters? She asked. Medical training combined with xenobiology studies, Sarah explained. But the real key was understanding your psychology. Velkhari warriors are trained to intimidate and overpower. You expect opponents to either flee in terror or try to match your strength. And humans do neither. Humans adapt. When we encounter a superior force, we don't try to overpower it. We study it, understand it, and find ways to work around it. Zara-Eth nodded, lowly. You made me fight your kind of battle instead of mine. Exactly. That's what humans do best. We change the rules of the game. Sarah paused, then continued more seriously. But I want you to understand something important, Zara-Eth. I could have hurt you badly today. Those pressure points I showed, you? Some of them could have caused permanent damage or even death. The Velkhari warrior's eyes widened. Why didn't you? Because the goal wasn't to destroy you. It was to earn your respect and show you that humans are not the weak creatures you believed us to be. For several moments, Zara-Eth was quiet, processing everything she had learned. Finally, she looked directly at Sarah with new understanding in her yellow eyes. You have earned more than my respect, she said formally. You have earned my honor. Zara-Eth then did something that shocked every Velkhari in the arena. She knelt on one knee before Sarah, placing her fist over her heart in the traditional gesture of a warrior acknowledging a superior opponent. I was wrong about your species, she declared, loudly enough for everyone to hear. Humans are not weak. They are perhaps the most dangerous opponents in the galaxy because they fight with their minds as much as their bodies. Sarah reached down and gently helped Zara-Eth back to her feet. We don't have to be opponents at all. That's what I was trying to show you. The arena erupted in cheers and applause from multiple species. The human delegation was on their feet, hardly believing what they had witnessed. Even some of the Velkhari warriors were applauding, though their expressions showed they were still processing what this meant for their culture. Commander Vex floated back to the center of the arena. The duel is concluded, he announced. Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth is the victor. As the crowd began to disperse, Zara-Eth turned to Sarah one final time. The trade agreement you proposed, the Velkhari Empire will sign it without changes, as I promised. Thank you, Sarah replied, but I hope this is just the beginning. What do you mean? Sarah smiled. I'd like to propose a cultural exchange program. Velkhari warriors could learn human adaptive techniques, and humans could learn from your strength and honor traditions. Zara-Eth's eyes lit up with interest. You would share your combat knowledge with us? Of course. The galaxy is a dangerous place. We're stronger when we work together than when we fight each other. As they walked together toward the arena exit, Zara-Eth asked, Will you teach me this judo technique you used? I'd be honored to, Sarah replied. But first, perhaps you could teach me about Velkhari honor codes. Humans have much to learn about warrior traditions. 3 days later, Ambassador Rodriguez found Sarah in the station's gymnasium. She was sparring with Zara Eth, teaching the Velkari warrior human grappling techniques while learning Velkari weapon forms in return. "How did you know it would work?" Rodriguez asked later. Sarah toweled off after her training session. "I didn't know for certain, but I understood something about Velkari culture that even they had forgotten, which was, honor isn't just about winning through strength. True honor comes from recognizing and respecting worthy opponents. Zaraeth is a warrior, but she's also intelligent and capable of growth. She just needed someone to show her a different way." Word of the duel spread throughout the galaxy within days. Humans went from being dismissed as a minor species to being recognized as a potential major power. More importantly, other species began to request cultural exchanges and diplomatic meetings. The Velkari Empire became humanity's first major galactic ally, with Zaraeth serving as a cultural ambassador between the two species. She often told the story of how a small human taught her that true strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to build. And in the deepest archives of Nexus Station, the complete recording of the duel became required viewing for diplomatic training programs across the galaxy. The lesson was simple but profound. Never underestimate a species that fights with its mind as much as its body, and always prefers to turn enemies into friends.